Hi, I'm Joe Ovsenek, President and CEO of P2 Gold Inc. At P2, we're focused on advancing our Gabbs project in Nevada to production. We're currently in feasibility study and we expect to get that done this year.
Joe, good to see you and a happy new year to you, sir. We can just about say that still, I think. Just about.
Yes, close enough.
Close enough. Well, look, I hope you got a decent Christmas break and ready to roar into 2026. Look, great end to the year for you guys. I mean, I think you went from 6 cents to 73 cents. I'm looking at here. It says my chart. Not a bad year.
Yeah, it was a great year. Yeah, can't complain at all.
So, let's look at today. The point is we're going to talk about 2026, but I think before we do, we've got to kind of look back at kind of the setup in 2025. So, if you would kind of look at the kind of moments in 2025 and things that you did and you delivered, which were the most important?
I think from our perspective, we had a few highlights. First off, getting our updated metallurgy out sort of set the stage for advancing the company. So we got that out early September. Early October, we had our updated PEA out, bringing in those updated metallurgical results, and really came out with it just shows how robust Gabbs is. So between the two of those, that sort of set the stage for our share price to start to build. Getting the word out on how great and robust a project Gabbs is.
Right, and I guess the other thing that kind of struck me about last year was the bench strength. You know, in terms of people's belief in the team's ability to execute. Can you just maybe remind us, like the team and kind of who you brought in?
Yeah, well, look at our main team's been together for I don't know 20 years, maybe more. So there's Ken McNaughton running our exploration and development side. We have Michelle Romero on our external affairs, and then we have Grant Bond as our CFO. And so we've worked together for quite a while. Team knows how to get things done. And so once we raised some money in the fall, that was another big thing for us. We started hitting things right away. Drilling started mid-October for our RC drilling, for infill and expansion drilling. Geotech drilling with a diamond drill started in November. So we hit the ground running as soon as we got that PEA out and closed up on our financing.
So, then talk to me about the kind of corporate structuring needed to be. Like we'll talk about the technical bench strength in a second, but the kind of setup and the cleaning up of balance sheets and just trying to get the market to understand that this is going to set up from success structurally from the beginning.
Well, the way we're structured, we've had some grinding down in the years where we were trading at a nickel. But management owns a significant part of the company. We kept it going. We're currently, I think today we're about 60.5% of the company. So we're well invested in the company, have a lot of our own cash in. We had to, Waterton, we bought our asset off Waterton Precious Metals. And so one thing that happened over the course of the year, back in 2025, we essentially bought them out, but they had a big share position from that buyout. Over the fall, they sold down their position. They're now gone. So that's, that was an overhang. A lot of people were looking at their block and figuring at some point they're going to sell. Well, they have sold. They had 23 million shares. That's been sold. So they really cleaned up the balance sheet. We had that convertible debenture I mentioned. That comes due in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, end of January. And we have the cash to pay it out. I expect it'll be converted. So again, that's all just getting things cleaned up as we move forward.
Okay, balance sheet tidied up, and I guess structurally designed to succeed this year. So if we look at things like, before we kind of dash into 2026, when you bought this from Waterton, I mean, what did you buy? What in terms of data, in terms of assets, what specifically was in the deal?
Well, we bought the claim block. So essentially the claims, some historical data, but essentially it was the claim block. We've added to that claim block since there were 300 and change claims that we bought. We've added a couple hundred more just to build out the claim block. But that was it. It was structured. Ken and I, McNaughton and I, came up with most of the funds to buy the asset. There was a lot of money on the come. So we've worked that down, restructured a couple times. They've been finally paid out. So, a lot of perseverance to get through the sort of lull in metal prices.
Right, obviously, and obviously timing it into quite a strong market, so price momentum and sentiment for sure. Let's kind of get, if you don't mind, just sticking with the kind of team, that kind of execution, credibility. I know you guys have been together for a while. Remind us of some of the deals that you and the team have worked on, and what were you doing there?
Well, this goes back when Ken and I first started working together in '96 at Silver Standard Resources, that's now known as SSR Mining. At the time I joined, the company was just getting back to be a silver-focused company. From that time, we were at about a 50 million market cap. We left in 2010 for Pretium to set up Pretium, and we were a couple billion at the time. We were sort of two of the key figures, working with Bob Quartermain, who was our president, and really took that company from nothing to a couple billion ounces of silver in the ground, which today, would really be hitting it out of the park, and put a mine in production down in the Andes. Hands-on and all that. We went from there to Pretium Resources, where we took a discovery that was at Silver Standard, the Brucejack project. Anyways, we moved over to a new company called Pretium Resources, bought that asset off Silver Standard, and we took it from discovery to production in under 8 years, which, when you think about it nowadays, they always talk about it's 15, 16 years to permit a mine. That's quick. And we were cash flowing right out of the gate. So we feel that's quite an accomplishment.
Well, yeah, I mean, crikey, 8 years is insane. But when you with that kind of backdrop, that kind of experience, and that kind of result, was that a question of a kind of process which you can repeat, or is that also a question of timing? And what do you put it down to, and what do you kind of bring into P2 in terms of deliverables and execution?
I think that's what it is: delivery and execution. That's everything in this business, and you can easily move it, transport it from here to there. You have to set targets. They have to be aggressive targets, and you have to push as hard as you can to meet the targets. And you can't be, a lot of people say to you, "Oh, well, set your targets, give yourself lots of cushion." Well, the problem is, you give yourself lots of cushion, you fill that time. And so you need to be aggressive, and you may miss a target, but on the other hand, you're working hard to hit it. And so that's been our secret to our success, is set, tough targets and work towards them.
Okay, so this is I'm not saying it's cookie cutter, but in terms of the process and the understanding of the process and driving hard and being aggressive and being ambitious is important with these things, because time is a killer in so many different ways. When you're looking at P2, what do you think you've got to do to kind of get this to kind of repeat the previous success? Are all the parts there? Are all the variables there for you to do that, or is just a little bit more work involved?
No, I actually think there's less work involved. We're pushing hard on our feasibility study. We expect to get that completed this year, and so that's a big milestone for us. In parallel with that, we're working on our mining plan of operations. That's the first step in permitting. We go from there. Once we have that in hand, we go to our environmental permit, and I think that's really going to be the critical path item. Get through our mining plan of operations, get our environmental permit, because as soon as we have that, we'll be ready to break ground. So, I think this is a better setup than Brucejack. We're working in a much easier physical environment to advance projects, and so. Yeah, we're excited about this, and we really think we can get to production quickly.
Okay, so it's like I said, so time can be a killer here, but efficiency of capital is another kind of really important component here. Can you just maybe get into the kind of exploration, drilling, resource growth side of things? Because I'm trying to understand, given the advanced stage you're at with the feasibility study, is this, how do you spend and deploy your capital most efficiently?
Well, out of the gate, for a feasibility study, when you look at your resource estimate, that's the essential part of your project. You need to have measured and indicated resources. You can't use inferred resources in that feasibility study. Right now, we have about roughly 1.2 million ounces of gold equivalent in the indicated category. The rest is inferred, about another 2.25. And so what we need to do is convert that inferred resource into indicated. So we're hitting that hard right now We've had an RC drill going hard at site since mid-October. It's a great crew. They're really hitting the meters. We have 15,000 meters planned. We should get through the 15,000 meters by February. We're also looking at some expansion drilling as part of that, so we're probably going to add on a few meters. So we probably be drilling till April, but you got to get that drilling done, get an updated resource estimate so you can put a mine plan around that, and then move into the feasibility study. So we'll push things along in parallel. We'll get the engineering going on mill design and heap design while that's going on. But yeah, you just have to push on all fronts.
So as far as you're concerned, I mean, do there any geological risks remain, or do you understand how that?
From our, sorry to interrupt, but no, look at it. The mineralization is at Gabbs is quite consistent. It's porphyry type mineralization. You drill into it, you know it's going to carry in that area, and you've got higher grade in areas, and then it disseminate. As you move away from the core, the grade drops a bit. But we know that, and you mine it, and you set up your mine plan based on that. But anyways, on the infill drilling, we know where we're drilling, we know where we're going to expect to hit it, and we do hit it where we expect to hit it at the right depth. So it's very consistent. Drill results, we put out a news release mid-December that some infill drilling, and they were very consistent with prior drilling. And so we've got more drill results coming out not too long. We've got some holes in the lab, and we're going to continue to have drill results out over the next number of months. But it's just very consistent, the mineralization, and so that just makes it even easier on the resource modeling.
Okay, so reasonably high conviction on that. So first concern is infill drilling, which will, I guess partially inform the mine planning, and because there's got to be some element of flexibility to that at the moment, I suspect. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, look at it. Until we get it completely drilled off, you can't really run your models for your mine plan model optimized. Because the way one of the things we're looking at, it's just I digress, but right now we're mining 9 million tons a year. One thing we're going to look at over a 14-year mine life is let's up the tonnage per year. Maybe we're at 12 million tons a year, which right now we're producing, based on the PEA, about 109,000 ounces of gold on average a year, another 33 million pounds of copper. Well, maybe we up that by a third, then we're getting closer to 150,000 ounce gold mine, and closer to 50 million pounds of copper. Well, that's a big jump, and that really moves Gabbs up from sort of a smaller, smaller side of mid-sized mine to right in sort of the center of the range. So 150,000 ounce gold producer. So yeah, like lots of potential, but that's all based on our drilling and as we infill and expand on the current resource.
Right, and I say I know you touched on a slide, but just give me a bit more detail around metallurgical risk and recovery variability and feed variability. I know you talk about a consistent ore body, but this is the sharp end of the stick, right?
Well, absolutely. So we have our oxide mineralization up closer to the top of the deposit, and as you work through the oxide, you get into a bit of a transition zone, and then we're into sulfides. The oxides are going on the heap leach, transition zone. We're going to try to put that through the mill. Again, I'm jumping around here, but our current plan, when we did the PEA, it was based on 1950 gold, 450 copper, I think $25 silver. So the world has changed a lot since we came up with our metal prices for our PEA. But because of that, we had our heap leach for 5 years, and then we had a mill coming online in year 6, where we would run 5 million tons a year through the mill, 4 million tons a year would continue on a heap leach. Well, in the current environment, that was all predicated on, well, how long is it going to take to pay off the heap leach? We got to raise some money to build the mill. Well, in the current environment, I ran spot prices this morning actually. In the first year, gross revenues, well, what is it? I think we have before tax, we're at about almost $900 million. So, that initial CapEx is paid off in, 5-6 months. We can bring the mill forward, which will actually increase our recoveries. There's a lot of things we can do to really optimize the mine plan to to improve the economics of the project.
Right. Okay. So if I'm looking into 2026 proper, I mean, and I know you touched on some of the elements here. If we kind of look at that kind of critical path of items for next year, but also into first production, are you looking to kind of condense that time frame that we would usually be hearing from other CEOs? You talk about 8-year turnaround last time. What can you do with a, as you said, slightly easier project this time around?
Well, look, we're looking to condense, and so push hard feasibility. I'd like to see us through. If all goes well, it's not all in our hand control, because permitting, we have to work with the BLM and that. But if all goes well, we'll get our environmental permit by the end of 27. We're pouring gold in 2028, and so I think that's from now it's less than 3 years. I think that's possible, and so we'll work hard to bring that. If you're looking at your chart, you're trying to move things to the left. And that's what we're constantly trying to do. But anyways, it's just a mindset. You have to have that mindset that you're always looking, how can we shorten the time it takes to do this? So right now, to move things forward, we've got a bunch of the environmental studies underway now, and even though we're not going to get into the environmental permitting probably for 9 months to a year, but look, get them done in advance. We've got more metallurgy going. This addresses your question. There's still metallurgy out there, risk. So we've got more metallurgy going on feasibility study. We're drilling for met samples right now. We're quite comfortable on the metallurgy, especially on the flotation. There's been all kinds of work over the years. On the SART recovery, we're going to do some more work on that. We're really trying to nail everything down in the next 6 months, so that by the time we get to the end of the year, we've got a really robust feasibility study.
And how do you obviously, the market's doing some great things for people, and it's very easy to say, well, there's money around, let's take it. But that's kind of dilutory behavior in many ways. You say you can condense timeframes, or you know how to condense timeframes. What about capital intensity and the return on that invested capital as terms of as mechanisms that you at the board look at to try and sort of judge your own performance? How do we judge you on that basis?
Well, what we try to do is, as you said, time is everything. So the more you condense time, the more you reduce your expenditures. But, so we raised funds in the fall. Those funds we had warrants outstanding from our financings over the years coming due through this year. We feel with those funds in hand, that's enough to get us through feasibility study. We have from our fall financing, fall 2025 financing, in 2 years, we have some more funds coming in, or less than that. So we feel with a lot of that funding, we don't really need to go back to the market much until we're looking at CapEx. And then we'll just look at, okay, what's the best bang for the buck? Because when you look at construction, people always talk about bank financing and lower rates and that. But if it takes you 2 years to line up your bank financing, or 18 months, then you get a lower interest rate. Well, if you can pay more for the money, but get in production that much quicker, hell, it's worth doing. So we look at all those kinds of things and on how best, from a capital perspective, to fund things going forward.
Okay, well, look, Joe, it was just a quick catch up before we kind of launch into 2026. You've started out of the gate pretty quick. I look forward to seeing what you do this year. Please stay in touch with us and let us know how you get on, okay?
Yeah, look forward to that.